a little boy a racial slur at a Rochester park.
Late last night, around 9 hours after receiving the case, an Olmsted County jury reached a split verdict for Shiloh Hendricks, finding her guilty of one of 2 counts of disorderly conduct. So you may remember this story from this.
Wait, did you catch that? A woman was just convicted in court, not for physical assault, but for a word she used on a playground. And the financial details being hidden from the jury will completely blow your mind.
Goes on profanity-laced tirades at referees. Those racists see her as a white woman in need of saving and taking matters into their own hands. And added, quote, it shouldn't need this reminding that this country has an awful history of black people being harmed, even killed in the name of defending white women.
Look at how quickly national media pivots the narrative here. A major publication literally compared a modern basketball player selling a foul call to one of the darkest, most tragic historical events in American history. It is a completely wild escalation. When you break down the psychology of why this comparison was made, it reveals a deliberate attempt to inject extreme cultural stakes into an otherwise standard athletic competition. You have to ask yourself why the writer felt so emboldened to publish something so radioactive. It's because outrage algorithms reward the most extreme takes imaginable. If you just talk about basketball strategy, nobody clicks. But if you connect a rookie guard to heavy historical trauma, you immediately trigger millions of emotional responses across social media. Notice the underlying tactic. They aren't even analyzing the game anymore. They are analyzing the perceived cultural identity of the players and using it to farm engagement. This completely changes the way sports commentary operates moving forward, and honestly, it sets a very dangerous precedent for sports journalism.
We attack, and I thought Caitlin had really made it big with a major new sponsorship, but then I informed her that it wasn't her on the Bud Light can. It was Dylan Mulvaney. And Dylan Mulvaney cost Bud Light $35 billion in market cap.
Did you notice the absolute silence in that room? When a former president stands up at a highly prestigious media dinner and directly calls out a network anchor to her face, the tension is suffocating. But pay attention to the specific punchline he chose to deploy. By bringing up the multi-billion-dollar market cap crash of a major beer brand, he wasn't just going for a cheap laugh. He was strategically reminding an entire room of journalists about the undeniable financial consequences of cultural boycotts. The reaction from the crowd is the most telling part of this entire exchange. Half the room looks visibly uncomfortable, while the other half is terrified to even crack a smile on camera. This is a masterclass in reading the room and then actively choosing to ignore it to establish dominance. When a speaker deliberately crosses the invisible boundary of polite society at these elite gatherings, they aren't talking to the people in the tuxedos. They are clipping this exact moment for the millions of people watching on their phones at home.
For a 4th term as President of the United States, I will be doing that. I will be having an official. In fact, I think I have. I won 3 times. Now I'm going to do it again. Thank you.
Look at the visual branding happening right before your eyes. Putting on a bright red hat reading 2028 at a dinner filled with political correspondents is top-tier psychological warfare. He knows exactly how this image will be plastered across every single morning show tomorrow. It's not just a prop. It's a deliberate mechanism to bypass the entire media filter and speak directly to his base. Think about the strategic brilliance of a joke that doubles as a campaign launch for an election that is still years away. While his critics are busy analyzing the legality of a 3rd or 4th term, he has successfully hijacked the entire news cycle using a $10 piece of merchandise. This is exactly how viral moments are engineered in the modern political arena. You don't need a press release or a multi-million-dollar ad spend. You just need a highly controversial piece of headwear and an audience that fundamentally despises you. It completely short-circuits the standard political playbook and forces the opposition to react to a reality he just created out of thin air.
Caitlin Clark is a threat to a lesbian black league. And so everything that she does cannot stand alone, as it should in all of athletics, where the best man or woman, not the best man pretending to be a woman, thank you, Sophie Cunningham, for saying it, should win, right? And Caitlin Clark right now is one of the best.
Pay close attention to the argument being laid out here regarding the sports media landscape. The commentator is pointing out a massive disconnect between what fans actually care about and what network executives are trying to force feed them. When you have a generational talent driving historic viewership numbers, the organic reaction should simply be to celebrate the greatness on the court. Instead, we are seeing a coordinated effort to filter that success through a hyper-specific political lens. It begs the question, why is the sports media establishment so reluctant to embrace a superstar without attaching heavy ideological baggage to her? The reality is that traditional media gatekeepers are losing their grip on the narrative. Independent creators and fans on social media are driving the conversation now, and the legacy networks are panicking. By hyper-analyzing the demographic makeup of the fan base instead of the athlete's actual skill, they are alienating the exact audience they desperately need to survive. It is a fundamental miscalculation of what sports are actually supposed to provide to the public.
On the count involving the cameraman, who they never called to testify. Keep this in mind. They never called the cameraman to testify. This judge prohibited us from telling the jury that Shire Jamali, had a GoFundMe page, $340,000.
Hold on, you need to hear what this attorney just dropped on live television. After a highly publicized trial surrounding a viral playground incident, the defense team casually reveals the existence of a massive crowdfunding campaign tied to the accusers. This entirely recontextualizes the motives behind the original viral video. We live in an era where public outrage can literally be monetized overnight. When a conflict between two private citizens gets uploaded to social media, the primary objective is rarely conflict resolution. It's going viral and setting up a donation link. The fact that the judge reportedly blocked the jury from hearing about this massive financial incentive is a critical piece of information. It changes everything about how we view the credibility of the individuals involved. This is a terrifying look into the modern justice system, where digital mobs dictate legal outcomes and key pieces of evidence regarding financial gain are intentionally swept under the rug. It really makes you second-guess every single viral confrontation you see on your feed.
Has become dangerous. Now she's apologizing after the backlash, saying, quote, "In my recent column, I made an artful comparison with the murder of Emmett Till. I obviously did not provide enough context for that. However, this point stands. There is a history in this country of perceived threats to white women being weaponized against African Americans and the danger that poses."
Check out the carefully crafted language in this apology statement. Notice how it's not an admission of a fundamentally flawed argument, but rather a strategic retreat labeled as an inartful comparison. This is the textbook anatomy of a corporate media apology. The writer attempts to walk back the most radioactive part of their column, the historical comparison, while desperately clinging to the underlying premise that the athlete's existence is somehow threatening. It's fascinating to watch the real-time collision between extreme editorial overreach and massive public backlash. The publication realized they stepped on a massive landmine, but their pride prevents them from fully retracting the piece. Instead, they try to thread this impossible needle, satisfying neither their critics nor their supporters. This perfectly illustrates the complete lack of editorial oversight happening in major newsrooms right now. They prioritize generating outrage and clicks over basic historical accuracy, and when they inevitably get caught, they rely on complex PR spin to save face. It's a completely broken model.
That's a good thing. But some people say that Jake Tapper is a great investigative reporter in D.C., and that's why after moderating our debate, It only took him 1 year to break the story that Joe Biden might possibly have suffered from cognitive decline. It took him 1 year. He wrote a book about how great he was mentally.
Listen to the specific phrasing in this roast. He is directly challenging the investigative integrity of a major news anchor, mocking the timeline it took to uncover a story about cognitive decline. What makes this so devastating is that it targets the core professional pride of the journalist. The silence in the room isn't just awkwardness, it's the sound of a deeply uncomfortable truth being aired out in front of the exact people who helped suppress it. When you analyze the power dynamics at play, this is a masterstroke. He takes the very platform designed to celebrate the press and weaponizes it to highlight their institutional failures. The fact that he delivers it with a casual, almost indifferent tone just amplifies the sting. It shows a complete lack of fear regarding their retaliatory power. The media relies on a sense of mutual respect and decorum to maintain their authority, and he is systematically dismantling that illusion live on stage, knowing they have absolutely no defense mechanism prepared for it.
Accomplishments that the media never talks about. For example, under my administration, a once feared and powerful regime that relentlessly attacked America has finally been toppled. Their former leaders have been removed, and they're now being run by a gay dictator facing internal divisions. But I, for one, wish Barry Weiss.
Look at the body language of the journalists sitting in the foreground as this is being said. They are being compared to a toppled foreign regime, and they can do nothing but sit there and take it. This is a level of direct confrontation that completely shatters the normal, unwritten rules of Washington media events. Typically, these dinners are about self-deprecating humor and gentle ribbing, but this is a targeted ideological attack. The speaker is actively delegitimizing their entire industry to their faces. It's brilliant theater because it forces the media into an impossible position. If they get angry, they prove his point about being thin-skinned activists. If they laugh, they are complicit in their own humiliation. The tension you are seeing on those faces is the realization that they have completely lost control of the narrative. They are no longer the untouchable arbiters of truth. They are just another political opponent taking friendly fire in a war they don't know how to fight.
You know, I love the White House Correspondents Association. I've been a member almost continuously since 1996. That's almost 30 years. But last night was a mistake. Our mission as a Correspondents Association is to defend the First Amendment rights of White House reporters to report.
Did you catch the defensive posture being adopted by this panel? After enduring a brutal roast, the instinct of the legacy media is to immediately huddle together and claim that the entire event was a mistake. They are essentially saying that because they didn't enjoy being criticized, the institution of the press dinner has failed its mission. It's an incredible display of institutional entitlement. They are so accustomed to controlling the boundaries of acceptable discourse that the moment someone steps outside those lines, they want to shut the entire system down. This clip perfectly encapsulates the widening gap between elite media circles and the general public. While the viewers at home are highly entertained by the disruption of decorum, the people inside the bubble are clutching their pearls and mourning the loss of civility. It really shows how insulated these networks have become from the actual mood of the country, mistaking their own personal discomfort for a national crisis. The media is actively changing the rules right in front of us. Make sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss the next breakdown.
Investigate Raul Morales. Witnesses say he yelled Allahu Akbar before stabbing a Jewish man and an Asian man in New York City's Upper West Side.
Stop scrolling right now. A man just walked out of a synagogue in New York City, and the unthinkable happened. But what the politicians are doing behind the scenes is even crazier. We need to break this down.
I just saw him sitting on his knees, not moving at all, with this knife sticking out. It was the scariest thing I've ever seen.
Wait, did you catch that? She's describing a guy just sitting on his knees with a knife sticking out, completely motionless after doing something horrific. It's the kind of chilling detail that doesn't make the front page, but tells you exactly what kind of situation regular people are dealing with right now. You walk outside expecting a normal day, and suddenly you're in the middle of a major crime scene. What really gets me is the sheer randomness of it. People are just trying to live their lives, and this happens right in their own neighborhood. It makes you wonder where the security was and how things escalated so quickly without any intervention. We are talking about a completely unprovoked scenario that leaves a community totally shattered. This isn't just a random act. It feels like a symptom of a much larger breakdown in basic public safety. And honestly, the fact that witnesses are just casually detailing this level of terror on the streets should be a massive wake-up call for everyone in charge.
Today, Jewish leaders in New York said Mamdani is stoking anti-Semitism.
Mayor Mamdani, stop fanning the flames of hatred and division. The consequences are not abstract. They're playing out on our streets.
Listen closely to the sheer frustration in his voice here. He is directly calling out the leadership for fanning the flames. It is completely wild to see a community leader having to stand on a sidewalk and literally beg elected officials to stop making things worse. You don't see this level of direct confrontation unless a community feels totally abandoned. He's pointing out that political words have actual, real-world consequences. When politicians play games with international politics to score cheap points online, it's the everyday citizens walking down the street who end up paying the price. This isn't abstract anymore. This is playing out right in front of us. The anger is palpable, and frankly, it's totally justified. People are scared. They are adding bulletproof glass to their community centers, and the people in power seem more interested in optics than actual neighborhood safety. It's a complete failure of leadership, and you can see the boiling point being reached right here on camera.
He said in that video that New Yorkers must pick up every tool they have to fight against Netanyahu and Israel. And I think you're right that a lot of the DSA members, it's not incidental that they are obsessed with Israel. It is core to the mission, so much so that a lot of the economic populace.
Look at the absolute fire coming from this panel. They are not holding back at all. They are calling out this weird obsession local politicians have with foreign affairs. Why is a city official focusing his energy on arresting foreign prime ministers when his own streets are dealing with unprovoked knife attacks? It's completely backwards. The panel is exposing how this brand of politics is just a massive smokescreen. They use international outrage to distract from the fact that they are failing at their basic job, keeping the city safe. When you have local leaders turning into foreign policy activists, the local infrastructure crumbles. It's genuinely shocking to see it laid out so plainly on national television. They are stripping away the political jargon and showing exactly how dangerous this performative activism really is. It creates a target on the backs of specific communities, and the politicians just wash their hands of the fallout. It's a highly dangerous game they are playing.
New York Attorney General Letitia James said it's too soon to determine a motive.
I had the opportunity to speak to the police commissioner as well as the local district attorney, and they have asked me not to draw any conclusions as a result of last night's event. And so I don't want to draw any conclusions.
Did you hear the hesitation there? The Attorney General is standing at a major press conference, and instead of taking a hard stance, she's completely dodging the motive. It's a textbook political pivot. When something this blatant happens and leadership refuses to draw conclusions, it sends a terrible message to the public. It feels like they are walking on eggshells because the politics of the situation are inconvenient for them. You have victims demanding justice, and the response is basically, we need to wait and see. It's incredibly frustrating because everyone watching knows exactly what's going on. This kind of bureaucratic stalling only adds to the anxiety on the ground. People want strong, decisive action, not PR-approved talking points. When leadership avoids calling things exactly what they are, they lose the trust of the exact people they are supposed to be protecting. It's a masterclass in how not to handle a crisis, and the community is seeing right through it.
He's charged with 2 counts of attempted murder, including 1 as a hate crime. And by the way, hate crimes are up 8% so far this year, and New Yorkers are on edge. So a question. Is Mamdani and Islamo socialist supporters emboldening thugs who feel somehow entitled to harass, attack, and even violently.
Notice how the anchor drops that statistic right in the middle of the report. Hate crimes are up, and the city is completely on edge. This isn't an isolated incident. It's part of a massive, undeniable trend. The numbers don't lie, and they paint a really grim picture of what's happening on the ground level. When you hear that a specific demographic is being targeted at such high rates, it forces you to look at the entire system. What is changing in the culture that makes this acceptable? It's not just about one bad actor. It's about an environment that emboldens this kind of behavior. The media is finally catching on to the scale of the problem, but it feels like it might be too late to reverse the damage easily. The anxiety on the streets is real, and hearing it validated by the data just proves that the community isn't overreacting. They are under immense pressure, and the numbers back them up completely.
What I do want to say is that it's really critically important that individuals understand that anti-Semitic acts have been growing in the city of New York. That we should stand together against any form of hate, any act of hate in the city and the state of New York, that it will not be tolerated. It's important that the Jewish...
Look at the major shift in tone here. Suddenly, it's all about standing together and not tolerating hate. It sounds great on paper, right? But after dodging the tough questions earlier, this feels incredibly hollow. It's the standard political script. Offer platitudes when the cameras are on, but avoid the messy reality of actually fixing the problem. You can't just talk about unity while simultaneously ignoring the root causes of the division happening on the streets. It's incredibly frustrating to watch because it's so performative. The people standing behind her know it, the viewers at home know it, and yet this is the standard response we get every single time something happens. Real leadership requires more than just rehearsed speeches. It requires action and absolute accountability. Until those in charge are willing to have the uncomfortable conversations and face the backlash, nothing is going to change. It's just an endless cycle of tragedy followed by another polished press conference.
The NYPD says an initial inquiry points to mental health issues as police investigate Raul Morales.
Watch the absolute chaos as they bring him out of the precinct. Even in just these few seconds, you can feel the heavy tension in the air. It's a stark reminder of the reality these officers and the community are facing every day. This isn't a movie scene. This is happening on a random Tuesday in a major city. The sheer brazenness of the suspect, even while in custody, is terrifying to watch. It makes you realize how fragile public safety really is right now. We build these massive cities and assume the rules will hold everything together, but moments like this completely shatter that illusion. It's a heavy thing to process. You have to ask yourself what went so wrong in this person's path that it led to this exact moment. And more importantly, how do we stop the next one from happening? Because right now, the system feels completely overwhelmed and reactive, rather than being proactive and keeping people safe. Make sure you hit subscribe right now. We are watching the situation closely, and I'll see you in the next one.